Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do when we talk about which kind of graph that we want to use is we want to find out if it's going to be a line graph or a bar graph. The first thing you are going to do is look at the manipulated variable. You're going to look at the manipulated variable, and if the manipulated variable is a change over time, whether that's seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years, it is going to be a line graph. So please underline change over time or passage of time and a line graph. Top right, I want you to write a graph or draw two lines of a graph. And this is a line graph that's got points that are connected from one to another. Does time ever stop or does it always stay continuous? It always stays continuous. So this is why the lines are always connected, because we're not just jumping from 1 second to the next or 1 minute to the next. Time is between each one of these dots. So you can use this for continuous temperature, time, change that happens over time, and speed. If your manipulated variable is a thing, like a category, like colors, pets, shapes, candy, food, days of the week, okay, you're going to do a bar graph. A bar graph is going to look like this. It's kind of more of a survey. Got a bar graph. So the manipulated variable is going to be types of things, and the data examples, like I just mentioned, were right here. So now that we know what kind of graph we need to make, we need to talk about how to create a graph from scratch. The very first thing, just like your data table, is always going to be to write a title. It's the effect of on. One more time for YouTube. The effect of on. Good job. You're going to label each axis Y and X. So your axis is going to look like this. The horizontal line is always going to be the X axis. The vertical line is always going to be the Y axis. Each axis has to have a label to tell the reader what it's talking about. Right? Each axis must have a scale of numbers based on the data that you collected. So I like to use something called dry mix. What have we been learning about recently that starts with D and R, Connor? D and R lately. So, all right. What do you think, Cole?
Dependent variable.
There you go. Dependent and responding. And then you can just write one variable here.
Can I go sharpen my pencil?
Yes. All right. It is always on the y-axis, which is this line right here. So this line's represented by the responding or dependent variable. And then what have we been learning about on M and I? What sounds familiar? What do you think, Bhuvesh? Manipulated. Independent. Variable. And it's on the x-axis. So the x right here. Okay, so when we're making a graph, we are going to do a few things. We want our graph to have the exact same title as our data table. So you say the effect of on. Awesome. You're going to label each axis. Please label Y and X, just like I'm doing. Please put dry mix when we're still learning how to make graphs, just like I have it on the board. Dry and mix. We need to title our graph. On the left-hand side, where the y-axis is, should be the title. And I prefer that they're underlined. On the x-axis side, I have a title for the x-axis. Next, each axis must have a scale of numbers based on the data you collected. Okay, so they should be going up by a certain amount of numbers. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 100. However, what always stays the same is the beginning of the x and y axis is always 0. You can never make it 1 or any other number. It's always, always going to be 0.